think it's important that it's not just the people that live here that pay property taxes, pay for our infrastructure on the roads. Tourists come here. We're becoming a very large community with tourism-based economy, not just tourism, but for the most part it's tourism-based. And I think it's important that they help us pay for our roads. They're using it, so yes, I would be.
Yeah, you're talking to a bicyclist. 2.5 years ago, I got on my bicycle after 30 years of being in a vehicle, and my #1 priority is economic and environmental sustainability, and I believe that we need to find as many ways we can to reduce our use of petroleum products and spend some petroleum products. So I think I have to say that even as a libertarian-minded person who would cringe at ever voting yes on a tax, we do have to consider that we are a visitor-oriented home, and the people here have got money falling out of their pockets practically. And I think that we have to consider some way to help us take care of, and at the same time, not just, you know, raise money to find ways to continue our driving habits here, but find other modes of public transportation so we don't have those costs to begin with, and so we can have more consumer and commuter friendly town.
I agree that a local gas tax would be a good thing for this community. I think, again, we have a lot of people who come to town from outside the area. We use this infrastructure, and in the summer and the winter. And we need to be creative in finding ways and spreading the burden of maintaining the infrastructure. And I think this is one logical, reasonable way to do that.
First, let me say that I believe in equity in application of law, and that would be
What was that?
equity
in application of law.
Yes, and that would be, and it's hard when you have different situations, and you got, just like when you're raising children, you can't treat them all the same. You're going to get different results. You got to look at each child differently. You got to look at. But in the past, I got to tell you, I just don't have enough information to know, to be able to critique what's happened in the past. I think that we need to have less burden, in a general sense, on business in this town and focus on the huge growth that's coming to this town. I'm absolutely convinced, after reading the opinions of so many people who don't live here, and it's not just our beer and our dogs anymore why people come here. So we need to find a way to, I believe, bring money into our town that focuses on those people that are selling their homes and businesses in other parts of the country, and they're moving here, and this is paradise for them. This is their retirement home. So they come here, they build these estates, and they live like kings. And I really believe, I know these people, I really believe, even though they might be not wanting to spend more money, but if we required it of them, that they would gladly pay more. And I believe that's where we should focus a lot of our money raising focus.
Yeah, we've all learned something through this last recession, and even as you look at some of the issues that, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start with this, but as you look at some of the issues that have come up, and the way our community, that we've deferred SDCs, you know, we've said, you know, we'll defer taxes, you know, you bring in the enterprise zone, you know, if you increase your, I'm sorry, I'm not being very eloquent at all. Let me start over again. The challenge with SDC relief, I'll take it from a different way. The challenge with SDC relief is that when a developer comes in up front, he has all his investors in place, he has his financing in place. That's when you know he has revenue. When you defer the SDCs, they're typically, because you're giving the developer an opportunity to begin to generate revenue, and you're going to pay the SDCs down the line. The challenge with that is when you have an economy that's strapped, and when you have ratepayers and taxpayers whose pockets are all of a sudden not very deep at all, what you're asking is for the rest of the community then to pick up all the expenses over that period of time. I think the theory through SDC relief is you bring in developments, you bring in businesses, over time you'll have more people in the community, you'll have a healthier, more economically strong community, right? But the challenge with deferring it is then everyone who's sitting at this table, we're going to be paying for that until things get going, right? And I think that's a dangerous policy. And one thing we found by deferring SDCs or saying, you know, this is part of the land use plan, but you don't have to build this now, all of a sudden it's a different set of owners, they're in bankruptcy, they're not able to meet their obligations. Who's going to pick, you know, who's going to pick up all these pieces? And so then the community as a whole ends up picking up those pieces. So my challenge really to all of you sitting here in this whole community is how do you rethink the strategy so that as we can create a good business climate where developers, you know, can come and can compete in this town as they might other places in the United States to maintain the values of this community and not have every time a new business comes to town to have the guy who's renting a house who can barely pay his new water bill, you know, is picking up the pieces to bring those other businesses to town. So it's a complex conversation again, and I will honestly say I know the SDC structure has changed a lot since I last really studied it and got to know it. So, but that's the landscape as I see it.
I don't know that deferring the SDCs, we don't forgive them. We may defer them until occupancy. I support it. I do that for a reason. Usually the system development charges are based on a future development. It's not something that's already in place, so it really doesn't impact the people that are already here. It's not the taxpayers that are paying for it or the infrastructure. It's for future infrastructure, and it's usually based on the future use of the facilities. So deferring it is only putting it off for their payment until they actually take occupancy of a building or of a business. So as soon as they take occupancy, then those SDCs are due and payable. So it's just a matter of deferring it. It's not a matter of not paying it. It doesn't place an additional burden on taxpayers that live here. So they will pay it sooner or later, or they won't get occupancy of their facilities. So.